This class is concerned with goal-setting theory. Goal-setting theory is a motivation theory. It rests in the province of motivation. It deals with motivation. And in this session we want to talk about the importance of setting goals and what are the characteristics of good goals. It assumes that by setting employee goals they will have an incentive to achieve the goals. So the theory behind goal setting is that once the employees know what the goals are, they will strive harder to try and achieve those goals. So it's important to have something to aim at. It's important that the employees know the direction in which the company is moving, know what's required of them, so that they can strive to achieve what has been asked. Goal-setting theory has become widely acknowledged within human resources, organizational psychology, and also behavior. So it's now an important part of our consideration in any of those areas. So the human resource people will be well briefed in the use of goal setting and the importance of goal setting. Organizational psychology and behavioral scientists working in the area of business will also be aware of the importance of goal setting. Edwin Locke developed goal setting theory in the 1960s. According to Locke's research, employees are only motivated if they are provided with specific goals and receive constructive feedback. So motivation depends on the workers, on the employees having specific goals and also receiving constructive feedback. That's what enables motivation to take place. That's what motivates the workforce, according to Locke's researches. So the workers must have something to aim at, and if it goes wrong, they must have constructive help, constructive feedback in the form of help. If it goes right, they must be praised, and they must get feedback talking about the experiences of achieving the goal. Task performance is greatly improved if employees have goals to work towards. If the employees don't have goals, then they are aiming in different directions. They're not pulling together. It's not a team effort. There's confusion. They're not quite sure what they should be doing, and hence their energies are dissipated, and they don't have a single-minded target. They're not channeling their efforts in a single-minded fashion. There are 5 principles to goal-setting theory. These are clarity, challenge, commitment, feedback, and task completion. Now we're going to look at each of these briefly in this session. This is what's going to take up the majority of the session that's left. These are the 5 principles upon which goal-setting theory rests. We'll start with clarity. A goal must be clear and specific. It should address the point and it should indicate what needs to be achieved. So clarity, it must be clear to the workers what they are aiming at. It must be clear what they're trying to achieve. There must be clarity of thinking. The employees should have a single-mindedness in achieving the goal. But to do that, they should be clear about what the goal is. They must have no doubt about what they're doing. And it should be specific. It should be a task that is able to be delineated. It's a task that needs to be achieved, and they can see the limits of what's required. So there's no ambiguity about what they're doing. For a goal to be effective, there must be a set time frame for completion. For a goal to be completed, the workers must know when it's due. There must be a time frame. If there's no time frame, it'll drift on and on and on. It will carry on, and there's no end date. There's no end figure. So there must be a completion time. So the goal must be very clear. It must be specific. They must know what the goal entails, what exactly is required, and there must be an end date. There must be a time frame. Goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound, in other words, have a time constraint, these develop motivation to succeed. So goals which have these qualities, they're specific. Specific means that they can be defined. The limits of the task can be determined. This is what the task entails. This is exactly what needs to be done. It's specific. It's measurable. The contribution of the employee can be measured in terms of the changes that are brought about in the product as a consequence of the employee being involved. So it's measurable. The task is measurable. If it's not measurable, it's not a task, because there's no way of measuring it. It has no start point. It has no end point. It's amorphous. It must be achievable. Tasks must be achievable. If they're not achievable, there's no point in asking the worker to try, because it's not achievable. You're asking the impossible of the employee. You're asking the employee to achieve something which is not achievable. That's a contradiction. So tasks must be achievable. And they must be relevant. They must contribute towards the bigger picture. The employee must see the relevance of the task. The employee must understand that the task is important and how it fits together with other tasks to meet a bigger goal, a bigger objective. And it must be time-bound. In other words, there must be a time frame. As I said earlier, if there's no time frame, it'll just drift on and on. There's no start point, there's no end point. It just carries on. So there must be some time dimension, the start time and the end time. And if these are in place, if these 5 parts are in place, then the motivation will succeed according to this view. These are various aspects, being specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound, are formed into an anagram. Take the first letter from each word and it spells out the word SMART. So these are the SMART principles, that goals must be smart. Now, for example, to increase employee retention by 20% in the coming 5 years, that's specific. It relates to something that can be done. It's measurable. It possibly is achievable, depending on the conditions of the labour market and the goods market, the state of the economy, the state of the company. It's relevant. It could be relevant to the business. Time-bound. Well, as it's stated here, there's no time. Increase employee retention by 20%. That could be over the next 100 years, the next week, the next month. It can be any period. So I said, when I read the statement at the start, I said, increase employee retention by 20% in the next 5 years. I gave it a time dimension. But as it stands, there's no time dimension, so it's not very specific. If we said respond to employee complaints within 48 hours, well, that's measurable because all the employee complaints would have to be dealt with, so it's measurable. It's specific. It deals only with employee complaints. Whether it's achievable depends on the resources that the company have invested in meeting this particular goal. Whether it's relevant to the business, but whether it generates extra sales or goodwill or whatever it's designed to achieve, that needs to be determined. And time-bound, clearly within 48 hours. So these are some of the issues when we deal with clarity. Now, back to our goals, the principles upon which goals are based. And the second one in that list was challenge, if you go back to the start. So challenge, goals are motivating if the employee or person finds them to be challenging. If the goal is very easy, they're not really that motivating. If it's a very simple, straightforward task, nobody gets too motivated about it. It's just something that can be easily completed. But if it's challenging, if it's difficult, and if the people have to think about it and work out how to do it and so on, it becomes a challenge. So it becomes more interesting. The level of challenge provides motivation because there is a reward associated with its accomplishment. When we face a challenge and succeed, we feel accomplishment. We feel we have achieved something big. So we are more motivated because of the challenge. Rewards tend to increase according to the level of difficulty. Jobs which are difficult to achieve, tasks which are difficult to achieve within jobs, perhaps a better way of putting it, these tasks normally are associated with higher rewards. The workers receive more when they achieve the task. The task is difficult, and the workers have to develop skills to achieve the tasks and apply themselves and think about the task, work hard to achieve it. So those workers receive higher rewards. Now the rewards could be monetary, it could be a higher pay or a bonus or something of that nature, or it could be recognition, praise, promotion, job security. But there's a greater reward because they've taken on the extra challenge. So being rewarded, of course, will boost the employee's enthusiasm to succeed. The employee feels much better because they've been rewarded, and they will apply themselves better in the future to other tasks. Goals must be relevant and challenging for them to be perceived as important. So goals should be challenging so that the workers feel that they are achieving something worthwhile at the end when they've completed the task. And of course they must feel that the task is relevant. It's not just a task designed to keep them busy, that they're not actually doing anything, they're just performing tasks for the sake of it. The task that they've been given must mean something, and the employees must see what the task means in terms of the overall performance of the business. So they need to feel important, and they need to feel that they're working on a task that is important to the business. The next one is commitment. Goals are effective if employees agree to the goals. Agreement results in employees being fully committed to the goal. So the employees must have commitment. They must apply themselves, and they must try to achieve the goal. There must be commitment, and the employer must find ways of getting commitment from the employees. Now, it can be done in various ways. It could be done by offering bonuses or higher wage, or the opportunity for promotion, or recognition within the business as an important employee, or employee of the month, or whatever it is. But goals need to be the goals need to be undertaken with a sense of commitment. The workers need to want to achieve the particular goal. So commitment also comes into force when an employee has taken part in developing a goal. So if the employee is involved in the decision making which led to the development of the goal, then the employee will be more likely to try and achieve the goal because they themselves were instrumental in designing the task. So if workers are involved in the decision-making process and they come up with an idea to do something, that they are more likely to try to achieve that thing. They're more likely to achieve that particular goal because they suggested it. They brought it up in the first place. So there'll be more commitment on their part. Generally speaking, the more difficult a goal is, the more commitment and motivation is required. If a goal is very difficult to achieve, it's easy to put off people. They can try for a while and they find it too difficult. They fail a few times and they get demotivated. They lose commitment. They lose their application. So the more difficult a goal is, the more commitment is required. And for that reason, difficult tasks need management intervention. The workers need to be encouraged and positive feedback, and they need to feel that the organisation is behind them in trying to achieve this very difficult task. Now let's move to feedback. Goals are effective if employees receive regular feedback. Generally speaking, according to this view, regular feedback from management about how tasks went and what went right and what went wrong, and praise where praise is due, and so on. Feedback is important to try and achieve the goals. It allows the employee to review progress and clarify expectations and discuss goal difficulties. So feedback is a way in which the employer can foster good relationship with the employees. The management and the employee is seen to be on the same side. They're trying to achieve the same objective. They're trying to achieve the goal. And if the goal is difficult, there needs to be more involvement by management, more encouragement, and expectations about how long it will take to achieve the goal and the issues that were encountered when trying to achieve the goal. These should be clarified and discussed. Was it a realistic timescale? What problems manifest themselves that were not anticipated? And how were they dealt with? So, in a sense, it's adding to the corporate knowledge database. It's adding to knowledge. The next time a similar goal is set, expectations may be slightly different, progress might be different, there may be allowance for contingencies, issues that may arise, problems that were not anticipated, and so on. So the feedback mechanism is very important. Feedback also increases an employee's motivation and determination to successfully complete the goals. So the feedback is important. It helps the employee with motivation. The employee feels that everyone's on the same side, everyone's behind them, they're being watched in a nice way. They're being watched so as to help them. They're being watched so as to give them positive feedback, to make constructive comment, to help them. And the employee likes to be seen to be attempting something that's quite difficult and doing it for the organization, doing it for the employer. Next is complexity. Goals can become overwhelming at times, and it's important that they are attainable. So when designing goals, it's important that the employee can see the task and that the task is not unduly complex. If it's very complicated, it may be off-putting for the employee. If it involves many parts and it involves complexity in production or in delivery, it's important that the employee feels that they can do it. It is achievable. So complexity needs to be handled very carefully by the employer. The aim of goal setting is to deliver success. Hence, conditions attached to goals should not hinder employee accomplishment. So goals should be as straightforward as possible. They should not be complicated. They should be straightforward tasks that the employee can see exactly what is required. They can see it from start and they can imagine what is required at the end, and they will take it on because it is achievable. If it is extremely complex, they may be put off. They may be confused or worried about taking it on, or they may be too cautious and may not work efficiently. They may be constantly double checking themselves because of the complexity of the task. So they need adequate time to meet the goal. They need to make sure that the goal is achievable, that it's not unduly complex, and they need the right time to achieve that goal. And to that end, it's important that the employer recognizes the capacity of the employee and the conditions under which the employee is working. So involvement with the employee in discussing the task, in looking at the requirements of the task, is important. So again, the employee does not feel that they are being coerced into working at speed with a task which they feel is big and complex, because the employee may be worried about making mistakes and failing. Employees also need time to take account of what the goal requirements are. So the employee needs to work out before starting the task exactly what is required, what materials are required, what tools are required, what time resource is required. It's important that the employee has a feel for the requirements and knows that the requirements will be met by the organization, and that they may then take on board the task. Now, the advantages of goal setting. Well, increased motivation as employees are working towards targets and deadlines. So having a goal is good for motivation. The employees are aimed at achieving something. They have targets and deadlines and they're focused. So that's good. Regular feedback improves employee performance and determination to succeed. And they also feel that they're a member of the team. They feel that they are responsible members of the organization. They're taking on tasks and the management recognize them for taking on the tasks, and the management are on their side. They understand the issues. So regular feedback is important. And they have a structure. They're working towards a structure. They know what the resources required are to meet tasks, to meet the goals. They know what the time dimension is. They know the support that the organization can give. They know there's help, perhaps, if something starts to go wrong. They can ask for advice, and the advice will be given willingly and openly, and it will not be destructive in the sense of hurting the person with bad comments or accusing the person of not applying him or herself. It'll be constructive. So everyone is feeling that they are working towards the achievement of the goal, and the employee knows that the resources are there, plus the help is there to achieve the goal. Now, the disadvantages of goal setting can become difficult to set goals depending on employees' ability and the goal complexity. Sometimes goals are complex. Sometimes it's not possible to make the goal simple. The nature of the product, the nature of the company, the nature of the business is such that it is complex and it can't be simplified. So setting goals in that sense makes it difficult. It makes it difficult for the employees and the operators who are going to take on the task, for them to see clearly what is required of them and the time dimensions and the issues that could go wrong, the things that could go wrong. And of course, if it is complex, the employee's own ability may be challenged. Their ability to complete the task may be questioned. Perhaps the employees need more training. They need a support mechanism, just in case, because of the greater complexity. It can affect performance if employees lack the necessary skills and capabilities. Setting goals is okay. It's good because of the points we mentioned earlier. But if the employees don't have the skills, then it can be counterproductive. It can lead to bad working relationships. People have been assigned goals and tasks that they cannot achieve because they don't have the skills or the capabilities. They perhaps need extra training, or they need to be moved on to less challenging requirements or skills or tasks. So it's important that the workers have the necessary skills to take on the requirements. Now, applications of goal-setting theory, well, it's commonly used in the workplace. It's so common that it's easy to not see it. In most companies that are making products, perhaps physical products, the product may pass through various phases, and each phase will be a goal. We'll have a certain number of tasks that must be completed. So it's commonly used. When the tasks are completed, it moves on to the next process where it'll have more tasks to be completed, and finally it becomes the product which gets sold in the marketplace. So it is quite a common approach to have goals. It's an assumption that goal setting improves performance and job satisfaction. We've made the point here that if workers know what the tasks are, know what's required of them, they will be more motivated. And if they get positive feedback, all the better. But that may apply to the majority of workers. It may not apply to all. Some may still be reticent to fully commit to take on tasks, or may begrudgingly take on the task because they see it as a part of their employment. They want a salary at the end of the month or a wage at the end of the week, and so they have to take on the task. They're not committed to it. They just do it because that's the job. So there is an assumption that goal setting improves the performance and job satisfaction. Managers can use goal setting as a means to communicate their expectations, their performance review, and employee development. So it's a way of measuring work to some extent. The tasks are set out as discrete tasks. The management are able to communicate their expectations in terms of the quality of the work to be completed, the time span, the resources to be used. So their expectations can be set out, and the workers then know what's required of them. If the workers fall short, there may be a case for employee development, perhaps extra training, or job rotation. Perhaps some employees don't like particular tasks and they can be moved away to do other tasks. So goal setting is important. It's important to understand how it is done in practice and what are the issues associated with it. Essentially, it's seen as a motivation tool, setting tasks that are achievable and supporting the workers to achieve those tasks is a way of motivating the employees. That's all I'm going to deal with in this session, so I'm going to leave it at that. Say thank you for watching.